Hello, myself Sunil Ramakrishna. Here, basically, we are discussing another topic that is city creation. City creation, basically, we are discussing another topic that is future creation. In future creation, basically, we are discussing SBI account, Amazon account, and after 2 days, basically, the big earthquake is going to come in India. Basically. So, in this, basically, we have discussed lots of things, and these all are basically real. Basically. If you want to check, then you can check it. But to check also, basically, how you can check? Basically, that is also a question. Because if you are checking anything basically, then you should have the source also. No, basically. Source should be there, no, basically, to check basically. What you are going to check basically. That is also basically the question. So here basically one of the person told that basically I have created the chip and that chip basically is going to connect and basically it might possible that is the handover of the universe group basically. Because in this world basically whatever new task basically has started, that task is the handover of universe. So without universe, basically not a single new task basically can be start. So the chip creation basically that is the handover of the universe group basically. So they are telling that basically please take out the handover basically, but they are not going to come to Earth planet and going to take basically going to tell basically by Lele Earth handover Lele. They are not going to tell like that basically, because they are very far basically. So they are basically giving the handover basically. So in this handover basically you have to take each and every ideas basically which you are getting in the brain basically, you write down that basically ideas in the one of the paper basically, whatever ideas basically you are getting, whatever ideas basically you are getting, write down it basically. If your brain is very very powerful, then basically then that is very very good thing basically. But if your brain is basically not powerful, then basically write down, because it might possible that that idea will not come into your brain in future, and that idea was the main thing basically. That idea was the main thing. So that is the handover process basically. Way of the handover of universe basically. So somebody basically know this everything. He's telling that basically paper basically you can write down basically. There is no issue basically. So he is basically telling that basically we will write everything basically. We will write everything basically in the environment, and you basically take over everything basically. Because then basically one of the person told that why basically they can't basically directly create everything basically from the chip only, because they are telling like that basically, then they can't do directly everything basically. They told that basically they will generate some idea in the environment, then basically they will do the process, and then basically they will create the human needs basically. But without human body basically you can't implement a single process basically. Human body, without human body basically you can't implement a single process basically. That's why that chip basically is created. That chip is the handover of the universe basically. If the one any of the person basically has created it now basically, that means that is a handover. It has came to earth planet brain, that means that is a handover only basically. But it's a new basically, so always basically you have to be very careful. For example, one person told that basically you are project manager, yeah, I'm giving the post of senior project manager or basically delivery head. So that post will be new basically. So for a few days, basically, he have to play very carefully, basically, with his post. After then, basically, he can do whatever basically you want to do, basically, whatever R&D you want to do, whatever thing basically you want to do. But starting stage, basically, it should be very, very sensitively you have to connect the information. Basically. Because once the idea has connected to your brain, if you are not if you have basically not collected that idea, that idea basically will flush away basically. Because ideas basically comes to your body basically. If you are not doing the process inside your body basically, then that will flush immediately basically after a certain time basically. So that is also very dangerous thing basically. Ideas. One person told that, yeah, Sunil, I got this idea. Na. So I got this birth basically. So you can just imagine basically yeah, how dangerous the stuff is. One person told that I connected to this idea. So according to that idea, basically I connected to this child basically. That is the 100 crore child process basically that is happening basically. On the base of that rehearsal which is already done. Basically. Rehearsal basically which is already done basically long before basically. And that data basically which is get going to dump basically. So one of the person told that this is very dangerous process basically. So that process basically that is going might create. So one person basically is telling that basically, if anything basically is implementing in the Earth planet, that means the universe group has already done that task, basically. And that is, and they know that basically it's a very dangerous task basically. So they hand overs everything to Earth planet. They basically are not going to come to Earth planet and basically going to take this handover. They are not going to like do like this basically. They are basically very far basically. So take the handover and start your process. But that, as usual, basically, I had told all new tasks. Basically, we have to very careful with. All new tasks basically has to be very careful. Basically, supposed to handle it. So that is also one thing. Basically, that basically we are not supposed to tell. That's American groups are basically doing. But ultimately, it's going to affect the whole world only basically, one day. So that is connecting to by default whole world. Ultimately, if any of the country is going to create one idea basically going to implement something basically, it is by default going to implement to whole world basically and going to affect the whole world one day. That is 100%. So this chip basically he might be creating with a few people basically, but it is generating the environment basically. It is generating the energy basically, and that energy basically keeps on circulating basically, keeps on circulating. I will take one example basically. He implemented. This connects to linked list basically. There is one concept basically called linked list basically in C++. He implemented one idea to one person. That is a cheap idea. He told that basically you are going to connect to this whole ideas, you are going to generate this whole environment, this, that, each and everything basically. He started processing basically. He connected to one more person basically. He connected with that chip basically. Actually, he connected to that person basically. He connected to, now basically the chip is connected to two person. Then he connected to some other. Like this, basically, 10 crore people basically connected to this chip, basically. Because if you have implemented thing, basically, that means you already connected to the environment, basically. So that is basically the America. So mostly, basically, if it is in the America, basically, then it's okay, basically. If it is tested, then basically, then also, basically, that's why basically the testing plays very dangerous role, basically. That's why basically testing plays very dangerous role. Lots of colleges basically give the IT training basically, but they don't give the training of software testing basically. But this is also very dangerous part basically. This is also very. So he connected to 10 crore people basically. Then 10 crore basically will going to increase more fast basically. So it connected to 100 crore, 200 crore. Like this basically the whole world is connected with that chip. From that single person basically. From that single person his chip and his computer basically is overflow basically. Why? Because he never thought this basically. But if he has thought that then basically he might have connected to the Amazon group basically. Amazon, please save me. So Amazon told that basically, okay, I will save basically, but I will take something basically because he's a businessman basically. But he was also basically not ready. Why? Because his server basically is connected with the business basically. That is the shopping data. Basically. According to that, he has designed the server basically. But there are also things basically will work. Might be working basically. Why? There are many services basically which Amazon implements basically. That is of healthcare industry basically. And due to that healthcare industry basically, he can take this project. And that is good thing basically. Because healthcare industry basically directly connects with the this type of ideas basically. So in that server basically he can take this data basically. So like this basically 900 crore people basically connected to chip and there basically data also circulating into that computer basically. In like this way basically the whole world is connected to chip basically through one person only basically. So one of the person told that how that energy basically might be here basically because from one person basically the whole world that is the 900 crore people basically already connected basically. That is very dangerous thing basically. So if somebody is implementing any project basically in the software industry also basically he has to be ready basically. If he is implementing some simple CRM software also no, basically his team is supposed to be ready because it might possible that his team basically somebody basically liked his project and immediately basically the buffer gets overflow basically of the software basically and lots of company basically start purchasing that software basically but he basically never thought this very seriously basically same way the Google basically somebody has created he never thought that basically Google will become this much powerful basically previously he might have implemented everything basically through database that if you will search this then basically from database the data will come and then select star from this where condition data basically displays but slowly basically he thought that basically Google is becoming more famous basically so he slowly implemented everything basically in the Google cloud based system Google cloud based system means multiple server basically as the Amazon basically is doing multiple chain of server equal to Google's Google cloud server basically that also you can give the name basically that is a Google cloud server in this basically the main thing is you don't have to purchase the server basically you just have to purchase the space basically but here the main thing is the control basically you don't have the control of entire whatever facilities basically that Google cloud basically has given the that only basically you can do you can't restart the server you can't do this that but they have the restart service facility so you can basically but sometime basically if you require the restart PC then basically you have to take the permission of Google basically but that they will not give why because your basically PC is in one of the server basically and that server basically is containing lots of data basically so that permission with so services basically which are getting implemented the services are up to that level basically this computer does not require restart basically. So that is also one thing basically. So you can just imagine basically so you can just imagine basically so another person told that the world has reached up to this level basically now basically you can't do anything now you can't do anything basically now you have to implement that at any cost because everything is done now basically that's why basically everything is done long before basically and that is basically the good stuff also why because somebody has given the handover basically. Somebody has given the handover so you have to take the handover basically but one person basically can't do anything basically that is also basically one thing one person basically can't do everything basically So I am searching basically for job. So without any support basically I can't get the job basically. I can register the portal, I will send the resume, I will send the resume to companies. So company also basically have to tell basically yes basically I will give you job basically. So Bangalore company I am telling, I am sending it to the Bangalore software company. So they also basically should give the job basically. Otherwise, basically, I will keeps on sending, keeps on sending, page. Nothing is going to happen. So that is also different thing basically. That also we are going to discuss basically the topic basically related to job. So here back to chip process basically. So mostly basically one person has implemented the chip na basically data. So mostly I am telling you the whole world is connected to that chip data. So one of the person to the up to what level the chip data will go means means one computer basically connected to one chip. That chip basically connected to one person, or basically he might have implemented some blood cells or whatever thing basically, as if that basically any of the thing basically. He started reacting according to the computer basically what he is doing basically. So there are basically many software you will not able to believe that basically. For example, I am typing something basically that comes as a sound basically. Sound with some person basically that is a male person he is talking basically in the through the chat basically we will feel that basically somebody female basically is talking basically to that level basically the softwares basically are created so that basically if anybody will try to track basically you will never able to track basically. I will take one more example basically of the news channel basically. There is one news channel basically ongoing, one debate basically is ongoing. Here basically the news channel basically is working from home basically. Background basically it's a news channel network basically. They are communicating basically. Here basically one digital basically one screen is there. Here one digital screen is there. Backside also one digital screen basically is there of the news channel basically. We will feel that basically real debate basically is ongoing in the studio basically. But it's really because it's a digital world basically. It's a digital world basically. That basically we have discussed long before. So here again back to the chip basically. Assume that basically that chip basically is created by one of the IBM or one of the IBM or basically one of the Microsoft or basically one of the HP or basically one of the Dell or basically one of the Compaq server. So up to what level that server basically is created? If they have created up to flexible level basically, then there is no issue basically. Otherwise, basically it will create some problem basically in the environment basically. This will connect to same thing basically. The nuclear bomb basically which was created that has created problem basically. That might not have created problem. Basically. It might be possible that might not be. It might be created same way basically which we are thinking. That means so one person basically told that basically this chip basically somebody has introduced that basically is telling that basically you have done error basically because that might be possible basically because you can't think up to the level basically you have to think up to little bit bigger level. So it might possible that the group actually who created the nuclear bomb na basically they have created some error basically. In that error basically this is the error basically through chip basically he's trying to find out basically he's telling basically that nuclear bomb basically group basically you have created the nuclear missile basically that is containing this error basically because if you are telling directly basically to nuclear group basically that you have done error basically they will literally basically throw nuclear bomb into your country only basically. So you that might also basically might be possible basically that also might be possible. So America group basically think up to that level basically. So lots of people says that American group basically are not doing anything basically. So they are doing this basically. See, so that might be possible that somebody has tracked that basically the nuclear bomb basically which is created basically. There basically some error is there. So through this chip basically he might be trying to understand basically to the nuclear group basically that you have created some error basically. Mostly that might be also possible basically because nothing basically you can't ignore the thing basically. So everywhere basically the army group has to be alert basically. That is the one thing basically. So the army group have to be always alert basically. I'm telling you basically. Always be alert basically. Because this might be possible that somebody might have told that basically the nuclear missile basically which has created because nowadays it's a digital world basically. So the nuclear missile basically which you have created basically that is error basically. So this might be the way of explaining to the nuclear bomb group, sorry, nuclear missile group. Basically. That is also possible. Basically. So we can't ignore a single invention, basically, or basically the creations, basically. And the chip is the one of the creation. And if basically, mostly basically, I feel that basically this might not have implemented basically because if it this might have implemented basically, whole world basically might have connected basically uh, through the chip basically. So lots of people says that it might possible that he might have implemented in the robot basically. Might be possible basically because if you are implementing into robot basically, that is not going to spread to the human basically. And robot creation basically it's done long before basically 20 years, 15 years before basically. And the chip process basically just now came now basically. That means it's a huge process basically. So error finding also basically is very dangerous task basically. So he implemented this software basically through this chip basically. He told that basically you have connected to this error basically. Because doing the business basically is also very dangerous basically. Nowadays basically doing the business also is very dangerous basically. And nuclear is one of the missile, one of the business basically. And why basically nuclear bombs are nuclear missiles are used that we have already displayed basically long before basically. And mostly basically one of the possibilities are this also. That is nuclear missile basically connected to one error and that basically error is displayed in the form of chip. So lots of people see that basically. Each and every creation basically that is connected with set of army groups might be possible basically. We can't basically say 100%. That is also possible basically. So one of the person told that this might not be implemented because if you implement this to one of the person basically that will affect the whole world basically immediately basically immediately immediately basically I'm telling you. So mostly basically it have implemented to robot basically and then basically to the whole world basically but not might be implemented basically because you have to be ready basically with the server basically for that basically Amazon health server basically might be there. That would be the best server basically. From that basically you can start the process basically. So hospital servers basically will be the good basically. So the basically who are into the hospital servers basically the architecture of the hospital that group basically can be become the future basically. So that type of server implementation basically is the good way basically. But that is basically our thinking basically. But we can't think up to the level. Why? Because servers are equal to one army group basically. Server equal to one army group. IBM server, this server, that all are the army group's name basically. Microsoft server, Microsoft server number one, that is basically one army group basically. So we can't judge basically the thing basically. We can't say only that basically this is the stuff basically. But that basically is the assumption only basically. So nuclear basically missile basically, but you can't one of the person to the assumption basically can be correct also basically one day. So the chip basically who was created basically the army group basically who has created, he might have found basically some error basically in that nuclear data, and he basically displayed in the form of chip basically. That is also possible basically. And mostly basically this is the only thing basically. So you can't basically fight with the nuclear group here basically. Otherwise they will basically say that basically डाल दूंगा nuclear bomb ज्यादा बोला तो. So it might be possible ना basically. But nobody basically they are going to implement this, because if you are going to dump the nuclear bomb into one of the country na basically, until basically the satellite group will not approve na basically, that nuclear bomb basically is a simple bomb basically. That is a simple bomb basically. That is not going to affect to few meter also basically, until the satellite group will not approve basically. And satellite groups are connected with nuclear energies and power companies basically. And the whole world basically is nuclear bomb only basically. The whole world basically is one nuclear bomb basically, that you can say. So one of the person told that that is also basically might be possible basically. But without satellite implementation basically, not a single nuclear bomb will get blast basically in any of the country basically. That is not possible. So the war basically which is ongoing basically, for that basically if any big disaster basically is happening, that is with the permission of satellite group basically. And they basically might have saw something basically. That's why that area basically got ended basically. So that is also basically one of the thing basically. So this all connects to basically everything basically connecting to one project only basically. That is the data science project. Nowadays basically the data science has become trend basically. Trend, or basically you can say fashion basically. This is basically the nuclear. But in that nuclear basically which all data basically are used. So that is one data science project basically. Very high level data science project basically. It's a very high tech, high trend data science project basically. That project basically normal company can't do basically. That project basically the normal company basically can't do. Only companies, sub company, software companies like big level companies only basically can do that basically. Because you have to secure that data basically. Na, basically. If any of the data will say that basically this was nuclear bomb, but somebody basically by mistake basically told that basically this is not, that is the data. So that is basically going to create problem. So nowadays basically the fashion trend is of data science project. That's why basically somebody has given the name also data science, data analysis, and data scientist and data engineering. Basically. This is the trend basically. This is the future basically. But that projects are also basically there. The CRM project, ERP project, that basically are ongoing only. Basically. That is basically you can't merge with this project to that project. Otherwise, basically, if data science project will get some problem, that also basically group will get stuck basically. So that's why basically somebody has separated that to data science, and that is basically good thing basically, and that basically connected to lots of supports basically of the data science. So here basically we saw data science also. In this basically we implemented lots of data science projects also. Data scientist basically. Data scientists also basically came into the picture basically. Because if you are collecting the nuclear data basically, then you should know na basically that is the nuclear data. How you will know basically that is the nuclear data? How basically you can say that that is a nuclear data? How you can say that? I will say that basically this is a nuclear data. then anybody will believe it basically. That is not possible, yeah, basically. How basically one towel basically can become nuclear data? That is possible. Might be possible basically. Because nuclear is basically equal to what basically? Set of data only basically. So in each categories basically there are nuclear data basically. Stable energy, unstable energy. The data which is going to convert the stable energy to unstable, that are the nuclear data basically. In simple language, basically it's connected like this basically. But here the one thing is that is going to disconnect the satellite connection also. That is the difference between normal data and nuclear data. That is going to disconnect the satellites data also. And immediately basically it connects to other data. And that basically the time period basically. The time period basically takes to connect and disconnect from one data to another data. That will take basically time, few millisecond, at least basically few millisecond basically is going to take. Few millisecond basically it's going to take. In that basically Earth planet is not going to far basically go from the data basically. It's not going to basically go somewhere basically else. Basically. There are lots of satellites basically which are controlling the data basically. That is the Earth planet. So one of the person told them this is the nuclear basically. And the person who implemented the chip basically, that might be the one of the army group basically who might have created this. That might be possible. Basically. We can't basically say 100%. That might be possible. So in next video basically we are going to see a little bit more about this topic.